She was standing on my porch at 6:40 in the morning with a canvas tote bag and a thermos, and the look on her face said she'd been waiting for me to open the door for approximately 1 decade. "You said I could come," she said. I stared at her. I stared at the bag. I looked back at her face. "Faye," I said. "I was joking." She tilted her head, just slightly, the way a person does when they've already decided the answer and they're just letting you catch up. "Were you, though?" I didn't have a good response to that, mostly because she was right, and we both knew it, and the coffee in her thermos smelled like it was better than anything I had inside. I should back up. 3 days earlier, I'd been loading my truck in the driveway. I had a week off, first real stretch of time I'd taken in 2 years, and I'd decided to drive up to the Cascades. No itinerary, no hotel reservations, just the truck and my dad's old tent, and whatever podcasts I hadn't gotten to. I'd been telling myself I'd do this trip since before my mother passed. I kept not doing it. I kept finding reasons, and then one morning I woke up and thought, if I don't go now, I never will. So I was loading the cooler into the bed of the truck when Faye came out of the house next door. She lived there with her husband, Philip. I'd moved into that neighborhood about 18 months prior, and in that time I'd had maybe 6 conversations with her. The polite neighbor kind, the wave from the driveway kind. She seemed quiet, reserved. She always looked a little bit like she was doing math in her head. She stopped on her front steps and watched me wrestle the cooler into place. "Road trip?" she asked. "Trying to be," I said. "Where to?" "North. Cascade Loop maybe. Just drive until it feels right to stop." She was quiet for a moment. I got the cooler situated and turned around, and she was still standing there, looking at my truck with an expression I didn't know how to read. "That sounds nice," she said, and there was something in her voice that was a little heavier than the words themselves. I don't know why I said what I said next. Honestly, I don't. It was one of those things that comes out before the filter catches it. "You could come, if you want." She looked at me. I laughed the way you do to signal a joke, to give everyone a graceful exit. "I mean, obviously not." I was kidding. "You've got." I gestured vaguely at her house, her life, the general concept of existing responsibilities. She didn't laugh. She said, "Okay." Then she went back inside. I stood in my driveway for a long moment. I assumed that was the end of it. People say things. Other people don't take them seriously. That's how it works. Apparently, Faye did not get that memo. So there she was, 3 mornings later at 6:40 a.m., thermos in hand, bag on shoulder, standing on my porch with the patience of someone who had spent a long time waiting for things. I said, "You're serious?" "I am," she said. "You don't know me. I know you well enough." "Faye, we've talked 6 times, 7, she said. "You helped me carry groceries in March." I had, in fact, forgotten that. She hadn't. I looked at her bag. Canvas medium-sized, the kind that collapses flat when it's empty. It was not collapsed flat. She had packed. She had actually, genuinely packed. "What did you tell Philip?" I asked. Something crossed her face then. Fast like a bird passing over a window. She looked at the porch railing instead of at me. "I left a note," she said. There was a quality to her voice when she said it. Flat and careful. The way people talk when they're trying very hard not to show how much something costs them. I didn't push it. I don't know why. I just didn't. Something about the way she was standing told me that pushing it was exactly the wrong thing to do. "Okay," I said. "Let me get my keys." We drove north on I-5 for the first 2 hours without saying much. She had the window cracked and her elbow on the door, and she watched the landscape the way people watch things they've been wanting to see for a long time. The morning was gray and cool, that particular Pacific Northwest gray that's soft rather than heavy, and the firs along the highway were dark green against it. She poured coffee from her thermos into the cap and handed it to me without asking. I hadn't mentioned I needed it. She'd just noticed. "Have you done this drive before?" I asked. "Not since I was a kid," she said. "My family used to go up to Lake Chelan every summer. I haven't been back." "Why not?" She looked at the window. "Philip doesn't like long drives." I didn't say anything. She didn't say anything. We crossed the county line. "Around Everett," she said. "I used to paint, actually, landscapes mostly. I stopped about 6 years ago." "Why?" "Philip said it was taking up too much space." A pause. "In the spare room." I kept my eyes on the road. She said it matter-of-factly. Not with bitterness exactly, more like she'd had a long time to file the fact away somewhere and make peace with where it was filed. But you don't always make peace. Not really. You just get better at not looking at the file. What kind of landscapes? I asked. She turned to look at me, a little surprised that I'd followed the thread rather than dropped it. Mountains, mostly, she said. Water. Light on water, specifically. The way it moves, that sounds hard to paint. It is, she said, and for the first time she smiled, a real one. Not the polite neighbor kind. That was the point. We stopped in Leavenworth for lunch, because I'd always wanted to, and kept driving past it. It's a weird little Bavarian-themed town tucked into the eastern slope of the Cascades. The kind of place that sounds like a joke until you're actually standing in the middle of it, and then it's kind of genuinely charming in a way you didn't expect. Faye laughed when she saw the buildings. Actually laughed, surprised, delighted, a little disbelieving. "This is real?" she said. "This is real. Why does this exist?" "Economic reinvention in the 60s, I said. Town was dying, someone suggested going full Bavarian, the rest is history. She stopped walking and looked at me. "Did you just know that?" she said. "Or did you read it on your phone just now?" "Somewhere in the middle," I said. She laughed again. We ate at a place with wooden tables outside, and she ordered a pretzel the size of her head and seemed genuinely happy about it. And I thought, this is the first time I've seen her look like herself. Whatever that self was under all the other things. It was like watching someone unclench a fist they'd been holding closed, so long they'd stopped noticing. We were on our second round of drinks when her phone went off. She looked at the screen and the clench came back, just like that, as if it had never left. She sent it to voicemail. It went off again. She sent it to voicemail again. "You don't have to," I said. "I know," she said, but she put the phone face down on the table, and that was the end of that. We found a campsite off Route 2, one of those pull-off spots above a river, where the sound of the water covers everything else. I had the tent, and she apparently had a sleeping bag in that canvas tote, which explained some of the structural integrity issues it had been having. "You planned this," I said, setting up the poles. "You planned this before I even confirmed." She was quiet for a moment. "I'd been planning something like it," she said carefully. "I just didn't have anywhere specific to go. I stopped what I was doing." She was looking at the river. The last light was going pink on the water. "Faye," I said, "how long have you been trying to leave?" She was quiet for long enough that I thought she wasn't going to answer. "Longer than I want to say out loud," she said. What came out over the next 2 hours, slowly and in pieces, the way things do when people finally let themselves say them. She and Philip had been married for 9 years. It had been fine at first, or something she could call fine. He was precise, organized, particular. She'd thought those were good qualities. She had not yet understood what it felt like to live inside them. He didn't hit her. She was careful to say that. She said it like she felt guilty saying anything at all. Like, without that particular detail, her experience didn't qualify. What he did was manage her schedule, her finances. He controlled the bank accounts, gave her a weekly allowance like she was 17 years old, her friendships, which had thinned out over the years until there was almost no one left. He didn't like her driving long distances alone. He didn't like her spending money without asking. He'd said the painting took up too much space, and the paints were expensive, and she'd believed him because when you hear something enough times inside walls that echo, you start to think it's the truth. She'd tried to leave twice. Once 3 years ago, once 18 months ago. Both times he'd made it, not violent, not dramatic, just very, very difficult, he cried. He said she was destroying him. He said she was imagining things. He said he'd change. She'd stayed both times. "I'm not going back," she said. She said it quietly, looking at the fire. "I know I've said things before, but I'm not going back this time. I didn't say I believe you. I didn't say you should have left sooner, or why did you stay, or any of the things that are so easy to say when you're on the outside looking in. I just said, okay." She nodded, like that was what she needed. Not rescue, not fixing. Just someone to say, "Okay, I hear you, I'm not going anywhere." Her phone rang 4 more times that night. She turned it off. In the morning it was clear and cold, and the river was silver in the early light. And she made coffee on the camp stove I'd brought and stood at the bank, in my extra jacket looking at the water, and she looked younger than I'd ever seen her. Not younger, like she was performing anything. Just younger, like something had been set down. I heated up breakfast and we ate without talking much, and it was the comfortable kind of quiet, not the awkward kind. "What's in Lakeview?" she asked eventually. "Nothing, for me. Just kept going on the map." Can we go there anyway? Sure, I said. Why? I don't know, she said. I've just always liked that name. Lake sounds like a place things get better. So we went to Lakeview. We were somewhere outside of Bend when she got the first call from a number she didn't recognize. She let it go. Then a text from the same number. This is Stuart Merrill, Philip's attorney. We need to discuss. She handed me the phone without finishing reading it. I pulled over. He lawyered up, she said. She laughed a little, but it was the kind that doesn't mean anything is funny. Okay, I said. Do you have an attorney? She looked at me. I have a dentist. I don't really have people. We'll get you one, I said. Let's call someone. I didn't actually know how to get someone an attorney at 10 in the morning on a Thursday in Central Oregon, but I had a cousin who was a paralegal in Seattle, and she picked up on the third ring, and she talked to Faye for 40 minutes while I walked in circles in the parking lot of a gas station and watched a crow dismantle someone's abandoned granola bar with great precision. When Faye got out of the car, she looked different again, more grounded, like she'd remembered something. She says I have a strong case, Faye said. Good. She says he's been financially controlling me for years, and there are legal remedies, and I'm entitled to half of the assets. Also good. She says I should document everything I can remember, dates, incidents, anything specific. Smart. Faye was quiet for a moment. Then she said, I have a whole notebook at home I've been keeping for 2 years, just in case. She paused. I think some part of me always knew. I didn't say anything. She looked down at her shoes. I just needed someone to open the door, she said. Not even for me. Just to open it. And I'd walk through myself. Lakeview, as it turned out, was a small town in the high desert of southern Oregon. Nothing especially remarkable about it. A main street and a hardware store, and a diner called Patty's with handwritten specials on a whiteboard by the door. But we went there. We sat in Patty's and had pie, hers cherry, mine apple, and she watched the street through the window with the particular quiet attention of someone seeing something they've waited for. There was a moment, right there in that diner booth with the vinyl seats and the weak afternoon light coming through the window, where I understood something I hadn't expected to understand on this trip. I'd come up here to be alone with my grief. That's the truth of it. My mother had died 14 months earlier. We were close, closer than I'd ever told most people, and I'd spent the year and a half since then being very busy and very functional and very much not okay. I'd thought the trip was about the mountains, the drive, the tent. I'd thought it was about getting some air. It was partly. But the other part, the part I hadn't admitted to myself, was that I was looking for proof that things could still be good, that a stranger could make you laugh over a thermos of coffee. That pie still tasted like something. That the world was still the kind of place that had people in it who noticed when you needed coffee before you asked. Faye was looking at me with the focused way she had. You got quiet, she said. Thinking about my mom, I said. It surprised me to say it. I hadn't said it out loud in a long time. She didn't rush to fill the silence. She just waited. She would have loved this drive, I said. The mountains. She was always wanting to go places, and I was always going to take her, and then I ran out of time. Faye set down her fork. I'm sorry, she said. And she meant it the way people only sometimes mean it, not as a social formula, as an actual thing. We sat there for a while, the two of us with our pie and our losses, in a town called Lakeview where things were supposed to get better. I don't know if it was the place or the day, or just the accumulated effect of several hundred miles of road, but I think maybe they did, a little. We drove back over 3 days. She called Philip once, brief, controlled, businesslike, to confirm she was safe and that she'd be in touch through the attorney. I sat outside the car and gave her privacy, and when she came out, her hands were steady, and her chin was up, and she said, Okay, that's done. She'd made an appointment with a family law attorney in Seattle for the following week. She had the notebook. She had the documentation. She was going to be okay. I didn't know that for certain, not in that moment. You never know that for certain. But she had that quality about her. I'd noticed it from the first morning on my porch. This quiet, durable quality, like something that bends instead of breaks. Like willow wood. You don't realize what it is until you've seen what it's been bending against. When we got back to the neighborhood, I pulled into my driveway and we sat there for a minute without getting out. You didn't have to do this, she said. I know, I said. I'm going to stay with my sister in Portland while things get sorted out. I just wanted you to know in case you wondered. I nodded. She got out of the truck, and then she paused, standing there in the driveway in the October afternoon light, her canvas bag over her shoulder, looking at the house next door for a long moment. I used to paint light on water, she said. Not quite to me. More to herself. Or maybe to the house. I think I'm going to start again. She turned and looked at me. Thank you for the door, she said. And then she walked to her car, loaded her bag, and drove toward Portland and whatever was going to come next. I stood in my driveway for a minute after she left. The neighborhood was quiet. A couple of leaves came off the maple at the end of the block and drifted down in that slow, unhurried way leaves do when they've finally decided to let go. I thought about my mom. I thought about how she always said that kindness was rarely as complicated as we made it out to be, that mostly it was just noticing when someone needed the door opened and deciding not to walk past. I'd come back from the Cascades with a full tank of gas and most of my groceries still uneaten and no particular resolution to anything. I was still grieving. I was still behind on everything I was behind on. None of that had changed. But I'd opened a door, and someone had walked through it, and she'd reminded me, without trying to, without knowing she was doing it, that the world was still worth driving through. I grabbed my cooler out of the truck bed and carried it inside, and I made myself coffee, and I sat by the window, and for the first time in a long time, the quiet felt like something I could live inside, rather than something I was trapped in. That felt like enough. For now, that felt like enough.